think it's because I'm going to give you something, but maybe I could, who knows. So sit comfortably. We're here, it's Monday the 19th of July. So let yourself, get mindful of how you are sitting so you do feel good in your hips. Grab blankets if you want to. Stretch your legs out. If it doesn't feel good to sit cross-legged, don't sit cross-legged. Or use blocks underneath your legs too. That can help. And then just lengthen up. Close your eyes really, really easily. Feel your eyes close and softly so that you can feel that length upward through the crown of your head. And you can enjoy your breath now, coming in and going out through your nose. So feeling the breath just easily in and out. Feel the breath coming into your belly, letting your belly rise and expand a little bit as you inhale. And if you're comfortable, to come into those deeper three-part breaths, you can inhale into your belly, into your ribs, and then all the way up into your chest. Letting your exhales come out of your chest first, then the ribs, and then the belly. And on your next exhale, go ahead and lower your chin down. Tilt your head forward only as far as you want to go. Letting yourself release through the back of the neck. And you might feel it up there in your upper back, between your shoulder blades on your back. And on your next inhale, rise your head on back up, looking forward. And let's tilt our head to the left ear towards your left shoulder. And now release your right arm out beside you. Let your fingertips be a little bit up off the floor. And let's flex our hand here now. So let yourself just release a little deeper through the side of your neck. And now as you rise the head back up, bring the hand back in, we're going to tilt the other way. So the way the head tilts is the opposite arm that comes out a little bit higher than on the floor with your fingertips if you're on the floor. And then just flex that hand. You'll feel a little bit more through the side of your neck. And then we'll come on back up with our head. Let both arms come on out beside us here now. And let's inhale both arms all the way out and up overhead. And let our exhale bring our hands right down through the midline in front of our hearts. And then we'll reverse and inhale our hands right on up through the midline. And on the exhale, open our arms on back out and down. And now let's make a big circle with our arms. Bring your arms forward. Let them come up as much as you can and back as far as you can, back behind you. Your fingertips might come back down to the floor if you're on the floor. And then we'll reverse. Reach back behind you first. And then come up and over the top. Just feel your shoulders there, bringing the hands on down. Let's inhale here at center. And on the exhale, twist to your right. Let your left hand come around, maybe to your right knee. Depends on you how far you want to bring that hand around, right? Lengthen up. Now press gently down into your feet, just a little bit. So you feel whether it's your heels on the ground, the outsides of your feet, or your whole foot, right? Your whole feet are on the floor. Press down gently. Feel your belly engage. One more inhale. And on the exhale, we'll come on back around through center. We're going all the way into the other direction. So just finding that twist the other way. Into the middle of your back. Good. One more breath. And on your exhale, bring yourself on back around. And let's come a little bit forward. Now, this is all dependent on you. If you're on the floor, you can put your hands on the floor in front of you if you can reach, or you can put your hands on your knees. And if you're in your chair, you might want to separate your feet wider, either releasing your elbows to above your knees, or even bringing your hands down towards the ground, right? So if you are sitting in a chair at home and you hardly ever do these forward bends, you might start a little bit. Like if you're sitting in a chair at home, you want to release your back, you can ease your way forward. And if you can, bring your hands between your feet, like if you're in a chair at home, and just let yourself release there. You're still keeping some length in the low back, but it's a great way actually for most of us to release our backs. We're going to come on back up. So take your time, release on back up. And if you're cross-legged on the floor, stretch your legs out for a second. When you do recross, bring your other leg in front. And you don't have to recross, you know that. So that's up to you. And then we're going to come forward again. So those of you who switch the cross of your legs, when you come forward with your different leg in front, it gets more into that front leg. You go as far as you want. You can have your hands on the floor. You can walk farther out if you're on the floor. And if you're in your chair, just be mindful. Take your time. Let yourself breathe. Try not to tense up your neck. So if you can, let your head hang, do. Good. And one more breath. And then we'll slowly let ourselves come on up from there. And let's all stretch our legs out, whether we're in our chair or on the floor. And flex and point your feet just a little bit. So let yourself feel the backs of your legs when you flex your feet. And when you point your feet, you feel your thighs tighten up. So just moving through your feet, your ankles. Good. And now everybody flex at the same time. And then see if you can rotate like you're turning out from your hips. So your pinkies go down a little towards the floor. And then point your feet from there so that you're turned out, but you're pointing. And then flex your feet again. And then rotate back up with your toes facing up. And then go ahead and shake everything out. We're going to come around towards our hands and knees from here. So you know if you do not want to be on your knees, grab yourself a blanket. Put your hands up in a chair if you don't want to be down on the floor. Or you know, if your wrists bother you, really arrange for your hands to be comfortable. You can be on fists, which takes out that wrist crease. You can put a blanket under your hands or blocks, or you can come down onto your forearms and get entirely out of your hands and your wrists if you need to. So take your time at first. See if you can just let your head hang a little bit. Turn your chin one way and the other, like your chin is going towards one arm and then the other, or shoulder. And then come on back so you can look down there between your hands. Take a nice inhale. And as you exhale, drop into your cat pose. Feel your tailbone drop under you, round up into your back. And as you inhale, send your tailbone back and up. You'll feel how your belly drops down, and then your ribs and your heart. You can look forward or stay looking down. So exhales draw you into that cat pose, kind of like an angry cat when they arch their back up, right? And then inhales bring you back through, and you can feel why it is called a cow, right? So just be mindful. It doesn't matter whether you go slowly or a little faster, or maybe you want to stay in one or the other of those poses. Enjoy feeling that supple feeling of your spine. Finish off now the one you're on. Come to more neutral spine. And let's bring our left foot forward and step our right foot back and come into our first lunge. And you know you are welcome to use whatever support you want under your hands in a lunge. It can be your blocks, your chair. If you're using your blocks, they have those 3 heights. So be mindful. You might want to be higher. You might want to be lower. You also want to be really careful of that front knee. Don't let that front knee go over there beyond your toes or over your toes. Let it be over your ankle. And then open up through the back of that right leg. And now zip up your low belly a little bit. If you don't have enough to do, just think about one more thing. And we're going to switch legs. Come to the other side. So remember how long of a stance you take in your lunge. It doesn't matter. You want to get your feet like you're on very narrow railroad tracks. And you do want to be mindful of that front knee. And think of that left heel reaching directly behind your foot. So that gets the most through both sides of the leg, really. and into your calf. We're going to switch again. And once you get into this side again, see if you decide you want to lift up a little bit. I mean, maybe you just want to come up to your fingertips, you know, on your blocks or your chair. Now, that's a little bit of a more into your legs, or you can put your left hand or forearm up to your thigh. I know some of you even like to bring both your hands up, right? You like to come into finding a little more into the legs and the hips. That's totally up to you. And then we'll bring the hands down so that we can switch. Come to that other side. So remember, the width of your stance has a lot to do too with whether you still feel very stable in the pose. So if your feet are a little wider apart, sometimes it's easier to think of lifting a hand up or to come up to your fingertips, or to think of bringing both hands off of whatever surface they're on. Good. And then we'll bring our hands down. We're going to step forward and come on into standing forward bend, which for each of us is a different story. If you need to keep your back long, you can keep your hands on a chair and keep your back flat. You can put your elbows above your knees with your knees bent, and that'll keep your back flat too. So that if you fold forward, most people round into their low back, and only you know if that feels okay to you, right? So be mindful. Let yourself enjoy coming into feeling the backs of the legs just naturally opening up from being in your forward bend. One more breath. And then we'll bring our hands up to our hips. We're going to press into our feet and rise up to standing and inhale our arms out and up overhead. And let our exhale bring our hands down together in front of our hearts. So as you come into mountain pose, if you need to kind of walk a little bit in place, by all means do, so you can look at your feet too. And actually, everybody look at their feet. And for a second, put your hands on your hips and lift all your toes up. So lifting all the toes up really, it almost forces you, right, to find centeredness on your feet. Because if you roll to the outside, you can see what's going on, right? Or if you roll to the inside of your feet and get knock-kneed, you can see that too. So you want to try to feel the big toe mound and the little toe mound into the floor, the arches lifting up. Now just for fun, see if you can just put your big toes down, but leave all the rest of the toes up. And that in itself might be an experience. You can go ahead and lift the big toes back. And now let's try just doing the pinky toes. To me, that's even harder than the big toes, but you can try. It's easier, see? Everybody's different. And then we're going to bring them all up. And now, if any of you can do any of this, this is always kind of incredible to me. Put the big toes down and the little toes down, but leave the rest of them up. I know some people can do it really easily. Margaret, you're doing it, aren't you? Jeez. It's her piano brain to digits, right? Bring all the toes up one more time, and then really let them softly come back down. Bend your knees just a tiny little bit. And imagine you're pressing the floor away from you with your feet a little bit. Not harshly, just gently. You're just kind of pressing the floor away from you. And now, as you grow into your mountain pose, as you feel your thighs start to tighten up and lift up a little bit, bring your hands to meet in front of your chest. And let your hands very lightly touch. Spread your fingers a little bit, but feel that very light connection through your hands, your fingers, a little bit in your palms there. And just enjoy letting your body align itself. Hips coming over the ankles and your shoulders over your hips. I mean, really enjoy just standing. How often do we do that? But once you're aligned, it's very, very relaxing and very effortless to stand. And then as we unfold our arms right on down beside us, we'll inhale our arms all the way out and up. And on the exhale, let's bend our knees, come on forward into our standing forward bend. Again, how you come into that forward bend up to you. And let your next inhale help you find a nice, flat, long back. Whether your hands come onto your shins or your thighs or your chair or your blocks. And let's step our right foot back and come into lunge. Draw your shoulders down away from your ears. Now start to imagine zipping up your low belly. Really zipping up from your pubic bone to your belly button. And then we'll come on into a downward facing dog pose. So reaching into your down dog, take your time. You can have your hands wherever you want for dog, your chair, your blocks, the floor. But lengthen back through your sitting bones and find that sense of being really long through both sides of your body. Almost like you're symmetrical from right to left side, right? And on the next inhale, come on out towards a plank. Does not matter if you do a full plank. You can go to your forearms and do a forearm plank. You can put your knees down and do a half plank. Let yourself engage the belly a little bit. If you like to bend your elbows, just a tiny little bit. Draw them in a little bit, and you'll really find your biceps, your shoulders that way. And then we'll come on back into down dog. Really, again, finding that sense of reaching equally through your sitting bones. And your tailbone is reaching back, right? So you find as much space in your spine as you can. And then we'll bring the right foot forward. Now you can always put your left knee down if you're on the floor to get back to that lunge, if that's better for you. Or you can come up and back down into the lunge if you want. And then we'll come on back into standing forward bend. Feet hips distance apart and parallel. You might, try that lifting of the toes again just to get yourself centered on your feet. Think of your arches rising up. And then let your toes release back down. And then breathe. Just breathe. Let yourself feel the breaths coming in and going out, and feel how your ribs expand when you inhale. And with your exhales, every time you exhale, just imagine your face is getting softer and softer and softer. Let our knees both bend and press down into your feet a little bit as you rise your hands to your hips and come on up to standing, and inhale our arms out and up. And on our exhale, let our hands come down together in front of our hearts. Let's inhale the hands right up through the midline. On the exhale, open the arms like wings as you come on forward. You can bend your knees, remember, take it out of your back. Let your next inhale help you flatten into that long tabletop back here. And this time we'll step left foot back to come into lunge. Draw the shoulders down. Let yourself enjoy. Feel your feet in the floor. Inhale. Exhale into your downward facing dog pose. Let yourself reach back. Walk if you need to. Be mindful. Feel whatever you need to do. If you like to wag your tail, wag your tail. And then on the next inhale, we'll come on out towards that plank. Again, it is up to you. If you do push-ups, go for it. If you prefer to stay in your plank, really think about reaching your sitting bones down towards your heels. Feel the strength in the belly, the low back, and the hips. And then we'll make our way back again into down dog. Nice. This time it'll be the left foot that comes forward, coming into our lunge. And then we'll come all the way back into standing forward bend, completing our sun salutations, the two that are on each side. So already, you're feeling better. Your body is waking up a little bit. You can really feel the difference when you've kind of used every muscle of the body during our sun salutation. And then we'll bring our hands to our hips, bend our knees, rise on up, and inhale the arms out and up. And on the exhale, let our hands come down together in front of our hearts. Let's inhale our hands right back up through the midline. Now keep your hands up there. See if you can just touch the tips of your fingers and thumbs together, right? And so try not to lift your shoulders up. Let the elbows soften a little bit. And then just lean over to the left. So you're coming into a stretch for the right side of your body. Now this is up to you. If you want to shift your hips a little more to the right, you can. Don't do that if it feels funny in your knees or uncomfortable. And then come on back up to the top, and we're going to go over to the right. And then again, if your hips want to shift to the left a little bit, you can. Don't do it if it doesn't feel good. And then come on back up to the top. Now bend your elbows. Let your hands interlace your fingers and be right behind at the back of your head. And press your head just very gently into your hands. Now when you do that, make sure you don't tuck your tailbone forward, right? You're lengthening up through the top of the head and reaching your tailbone down towards between your heels. Good. One more breath. And then release your arms on down. And we're going to inhale the arms forward and up overhead. Now you can widen them into a V if you want to. Inhale here. And on the exhale, bend your knees and come forward into your standing forward bend. Let your next inhale help you lengthen out your spine. And this time we're going to walk into a downward facing dog pose. So your hands go the height you like. And you walk back into your dog here now. Feel your elbows gently hugging towards each other. And on the next inhale, we'll come on out to that plank. It is totally optional to do a back bend here. You can stay in plank like we did before. You can do push-ups if you want. You can come down and go into a sphinx or a cobra or come through for an up dog. And then we'll make our way back again into downward facing dog pose. See if you can walk your down dog a little bit. Bend one knee at a time and release your head to turn a little bit side to side too, so you let your neck relax and just be really mindful, let go there. Good. And now come on back to your full dog. One more time, we're going to come on out to that plank. And again, it is totally optional whether you do any form of a back bend. You can stay in your plank, you can do push-ups, you can stay in plank and not do the back bend, or you can come through for a back bend. And then we'll make our way back into downward facing dog pose. And from here, we will bring our left foot forward to find lunge. So whatever you need to do, remember to get there. You can put your knee down to get your left foot forward, or you can just come up and back into the lunge. Nice. And then we'll step back into standing forward bend again. Feet right underneath you now, hips distance apart and parallel. Let yourself feel the weight of your head if you can. If you need support, put those elbows above your knees or your hands on your blocks or your chair. One more breath. And then we'll bring our hands to our hips. We're going to press down into our feet as we rise up to standing and inhale our arms all the way out and up. And on our exhale, let our hands come right down to be in front of our chest, coming into our mountain pose. So take your time. If you need to shift around a little bit or check anything out and look at the way your feet are or adjust your clothes, just be mindful. Once you feel ready to bring the gaze out, whether your eyes are opened or closed, just looking out towards the horizon, just enjoy. Again, the body really wants to align itself. So once you get your pelvis lined up, where you're not tucking your tailbone forward, you're not letting your belly hang out, right? Once you feel the tailbone reaching down towards between your heels, everything else just kind of wants to come into place. Lengthen up through the top of your head. And then we'll let our arms release on down beside us and walk around a little bit if you need to. Shake out. I'm going to turn my chair around. So if you're using one, you might want to have the back of it facing you. But definitely have your blocks handy too at the front of your mat. And we're going to step our right foot back and come into warrior one here first. So stepping that right foot back, drawing your shoulders around square to the front of your mat. Take your time, bend that front knee and look at it. So this back foot really is about 20 or 30 degrees turned out for almost everybody, right? As you bend that front knee, just make sure you can see your left toes still. And then let's just bring our gaze forward, let our hands come together in front of our hearts. And then from here, as you inhale, let the hands rise up. Keep them together. It doesn't matter how high you go above your head. And when you exhale, you're going to bring the hands back down in front of your chest. So inhale, rising the hands up through the midline. And as you exhale, bringing them down. Now, if you want to add your focus staying on your hands, be my guest. So if you want to inhale the hands up, let your gaze come up. Now, that's a kind of big difference, right? And then as you exhale, bring them down. Because that takes even more core strength. So one more time, inhaling the hands up, wherever you want to keep your focus. And on the exhale, bringing them back down together in front of our hearts. We're going to unfold the arms right down beside us. Straighten your front leg out. Coming into pyramid now, you want to think of this right hip pointer drawing so they're square, your hip pointer bones are to the front of your mat. And then come a little forward. Now feel your thighs lifting up towards your hips. You can put your hands down as soon as you want. If you have the chair back there, you might feel better off to stay high in your pyramid, right? Or you may go, well, I just want to put my hands down lower because it feels really good. Or down to the blocks, whatever height you want to be. Again, you're keeping both your legs straight. Once you get your hands down, sometimes you feel like you want to reposition a little bit. If you want that back foot to go farther back or closer in, you adjust your stance. So you want to feel your thighs engaging up towards your hips, and you want to feel fully grounded in that back foot. So now here's the backs of your legs, no doubt, right? If you like to bend your elbows a little bit, fold more over that front leg, you can. Don't force it. Just be where you can be. Let yourself keep that engagement upward of your thighs going on, because that protects you, really. Good. And then come on back up where you have a nice long back again. You might be up higher. Let's bring our left hand to our left hip. And just roll your left shoulder up a little bit. If you can put the palm of your hand down on your sacrum, do. And let yourself just enjoy it's a little bit deeper. Gets into the outside of that front left leg. Into your IT band, your revolved triangle pose. Not to mention your back leg will probably be feeling a little more too. And then we'll put the hand back down. From here, we're going to find a lunge. We're going to bend that left knee. And now you do want to reach that right heel directly behind your foot. Most of us, it'll be off the floor. And let's add the same twist. Left hand to the left hip, rolling that shoulder up. You're more than welcome to keep your hand down on your low back or stretch your arm up. If you choose to do that, you can reach the arm straight up from your shoulder. You might even want to look up towards the ceiling. And then we're going to release the hands back down to lunge, and we'll step forward and get our feet right underneath us. Go ahead and bend both your knees. If you need support, put your elbows above your knees if you need to. Let yourself release your head now. If you feel like you're tensing up in the back of your neck, try to let go. And then press into your feet equally. We're going to rise on up to standing and inhale our arms all the way out and up. And let our exhale bring our hands down together in front of our hearts. Find our mountain pose. Just take your time. If you need to shift around a little bit, you can always sway back and forth. You can sway front to back, side to side. So that it's almost like your body really wants to find its way into that centered spot, right? And then we'll release and let our arms come on down. Shake out a little bit. We're going to do the other side. So it's the left foot that steps back for warrior one this time. So when you step forward, if you got your chair there, you can just use your chair so that you stay honest. You have your hands definitely on the chair. If they're on the chair, you've got your shoulders square, so that when you do come up, when you bring your hands to your heart and look down, make sure that knee, remember, you want to be able to see your toes. You can barely bend this front knee if you want. You can bend it deeper. You just don't want it to go beyond your toes. And if you're like, well, I want to be longer, you can step back farther, right, and have a longer stance. So bring your hands again to meet. Let yourself bring your gaze forward. Feel the shoulders over the hips. Good. And then as we inhale, we'll let the hands come up again through the midline. And when we exhale, we'll lower them down. Now remember, it doesn't matter how high you go. You can be just barely over your head with your hands if that's better for your shoulders. And then when you exhale, you bring them down. Now this adding of looking at your hands when they go up makes you use your core more, or you feel like you're going to fall over, right? So if you want to keep looking at your hands and keep your focus, do. And if you're like, yeah, no, I'm keeping my gaze forward so I don't fall over, then keep your gaze forward. So let yourself, let's do one more. If you're up, just next time you come down, stay with your hands in front of your heart. And once you get there and everybody feels very centered, let your gaze come on forward again. And we'll unfold our arms. We're going to come into that straighter front leg. If you have to adjust a little bit, do. And as you bring yourself forward, again, if you have your chair there up high, it kind of makes it doable. You can stay up really high in this pyramid pose. You do not have to bring your hands down and get low with your hands to blocks. You can stay up higher. So you find what works for you. If you need to adjust your stance, remember, once you get your hands down, then adjust your stance. By the way, this is a great pose to do at your kitchen counter, keeping your hands on your counter and stepping back to a flat back. It's a really nice way to open up the backs of the legs. Feel your thighs lifting up. If you like to bow for a couple of breaths, you can fold over that front leg, not necessary. Just enjoy giving those legs time. And now come back more parallel to the floor so we can add that little twist of the triangle revolve. So bring your right hand to your right hip, roll that right shoulder up. If you can put your palm down, flat onto that low back there. Be mindful, let yourself enjoy that twist in the middle of your back. Beautiful. And then release the hand back down. We're going to find lunge now, remember. So now that left heel is going to reach directly behind your foot. You're bending that right knee. Find that runner's lunge. And then twist again. Right hand to the right hip and letting yourself roll your shoulder up. You can keep your hand still down on your low back. You can stretch your right arm up if you like doing that. So just enjoy. Let yourself feel your feet in the floor. Lengthen out through the crown of your head and back through that inner left heel. Beautiful. And then we'll bring the hand on back down. And we're going to step forward and get our feet right underneath us. Go ahead and bend your knees. Press equally down into your feet as you rise on up. And inhale your arms all the way out and up. And on the exhale, let your hands come down together in front of your heart. Bend your knees very little bit and press down into your feet like you're pushing the floor away from you. And then see if you can imagine kind of growing up out of those rooted feet. So your legs come straight, but you don't lock your knees. You feel your thighs gently engaging upward. Feel your tailbone reaching down towards between your heels. And enjoy your mountain pose. Good. And then we'll unfold our arms right on down. Move around a little bit if you need to. Shake anything out. We're going to come into Warrior 2 this time. So again, you can keep your chair that way. You need your blocks, have them there. We're going to step our right foot back. And you know, whether your feet are 2 feet or 3 feet or 4 feet apart, just try to get your heels lined up so that when you bend this front knee too, it doesn't go beyond your toes. Just like in Warrior 1. It's more like it's stacked over your ankle. And then start to float your arms out. And now, once they get out, let your elbows soften and circle your hands around. Let your hands just circle. You're still looking kind of over towards that left hand. And then let them circle the other way. Do a little hand dance, kind of wiggle around with your fingers. And then just start to reach out through your fingertips. So really feel the back fingertips too. In fact, kind of spread your fingers out a little bit. Feel energy, not tension, but just energy all the way through the hands into your fingers. And then let's turn our left palm up. Put your right hand on your right leg. Slide the right hand down a little bit. Reach up with that left hand and let your breath come into the left ribs here. So one more inhale. And on the exhale, we're going to come into side angle where you put your left hand or your forearm to your thigh or your chair. That's up to you. And you can bring that right arm up into line with the right side of the body, or you can keep your right hand down on your hip. So think about really lengthening out through both sides of your body here. Feel a connection too between your right sitting bone and your right heel. And you feel how your belly's working. We're going to come on back to Warrior 2. Let the feet press gently away from each other. Nice. Letting your hands come down. We're going to turn our feet more parallel. And we're going to come on into a wide-legged forward bend. So you know if you need those blocks, grab your blocks to be on the floor in front of you there. And then just be easy. Bend a knee at a time as long as your knees don't, feel any kind of stress from that movement. If you do, don't do it. Sometimes bending both knees at the same time is better if your knees are a little iffy, right? And then come on back into center. Let yourself lengthen out with a nice long back here. So hands can be on the blocks any height, or they can be on the floor, but the hands are in front of you and your back is long. And then we're going to bring our right hand up to our right hip and roll our shoulder on up. Same thing you just did really in your pyramid. So you're flat on your sacrum, your palm is down, and you're twisting in the middle of your back. Yeah, nice. And then we'll come on down with that right hand, and we're going to switch. It ought to feel kind of easy after that one because that other one's harder. So bring your shoulder on up. Find that twist in the middle of your back. Try not to drop into the right hip there. You're level, like you're serving tea right here on your sacrum, and you don't want to spill it. And then we'll come on back down with our hands and just set yourself up to stay in this pose. And you know, depending on you, that might mean stacking blocks up. It might mean you want to put your hands down more between your feet. You can use block for your head if you want. You can stack blocks up, use them to get out of your hands, on your forearms. And then just really let go. Be with your breath. Just let go through your face and your jaw. Enjoy those full, easy breaths, though. Remember, you don't ever want to force your breath. Just easily let your inhales and your exhales be long and deep as you can. Let go all around your eyes and your mouth. Nice. And we are going to think of rising up from here. So how you do that is totally up to you. If you need to bring your feet together before you come on up to standing, do it. And once you get up there, you bring your feet together however you want to and walk around a little bit. Good. We're going to come to the other side. So again, kind of depending on how you use your blocks, you might want to switch them around. This time we'll step our left foot back and line our heels up again. If your feet are 2 feet apart, this knee does not bend very deeply, but I'm telling you, it's still a really good pose in the core body. It strengthens your legs and your hips. So, you know, whether you step back farther or not, it doesn't matter. It's just the alignment of that front knee there. So let yourself be mindful. Float your arms out a little bit enough to again, circle your hands. Actually, this time, make kind of loose fists with your hands. And do those circles with the hands. So you feel your wrists and go the other way. And just play a little bit. You know, you can play a little bit, let your hands move around however you want. You know, play with your fingers a little bit. And when you get ready to reach out into those long, long arms and soften the tops of the shoulders, feel like your arms are growing out of your back. Feel energy through the hands, all the way out through your fingertips. And feel the feet equal in the floor. And as we put our left hand down on our left leg, we'll turn our right palm up and inhale and reach up towards the sky. Full, nice breath into the right side. Doesn't matter where you look. And on your exhale, come into that side angle, whether you put your right hand or forearm to your thigh or your chair. And then you decide, your left arm may want to stay down. You may want to keep your left hand on your hip. If your shoulder feels better doing that, keep your hand down. Don't force it. You know, find what feels good. Feel that sense of being really long through both sides of your body. Nice. So one more breath there. And then we're going to come on back into Warrior Two. Let your feet gently press away from each other. It gets you right back into your core body there. And then we'll lower our hands down. We're going to turn our feet again more parallel and ease our way forward. Again, grab what blocks you need. Let yourself take your time. Once you get your hands down, adjust how far apart your feet are so you feel pretty good. And then walk your hands over to the right, or you can walk your blocks over to the right. That's up to you. You go as far as you choose. Sometimes it's kind of good to keep your hands way out in front of you too, so that you're not near the foot. That makes it a little bit different than walking all the way towards your foot. And then come back through center and go the other side. So again, you know, kind of play with it a little bit. Let yourself find how far you want to go to the left, whether you want to come in towards your foot or stay out away from it. Just enjoy the stretch, right? And then come on back into center. And if you need to bend your knees in this pose, you know you bend your knees. If you feel like you want to keep your legs straighter, just feel the inner thighs. Imagine really your inner thighs are melting towards behind you, which is a different feeling in the hips than, you know, feeling the tailbone tucked down. It's a very different feeling. So press your feet away from each other like you're trying to make your mat longer, and feel how those inner thighs do that. They just want to melt their way behind you. And then just breathe. Just enjoy. Feel the weight of your head if you can without putting any kind of stress in your back. And see if you can find those little spaces between your breaths. So as you inhale, feel that little space or that pause before you exhale. And the same thing at the end of your exhale. Feel that little space, that little pause before you inhale. So just by observing those spaces, it's not like you're holding your breath. It's just that observation of those little spaces can be very calming. Now, we're going to think about rising up from here. So we've been there a while. If you're dizzy, please be mindful. If you need to grab a hold of something or keep your feet wide. I mean, sometimes if you come up and you just stay wide for a little bit and then bring your feet together, then you don't feel like you're going to fall over, which is never good. So let's leave our mats where they are. But we just need to touch something. Like, I can use a chair and be happy. If you can use a bookcase like Larry's doing. If somebody wants to just where your hand can touch either a wall or a bookcase or a chair. Yeah, there you go. And somebody else can be here. Do you have room? You don't feel too crowded? We're just going to do a little tree pose, all right? So let's all put our left hand to whatever it is that we're touching, okay? So that we can all stand on our left leg. And put your right heel either into the inside of your ankle, so your toes are still on the floor, right? Or you can, if you want, you can put the foot up into the inner calf, so it's right below your knee. Or you can bring the foot up higher, right? If anybody wants to put it up into the inside of their thigh. Usually that means you have to reach down with your hand and pull it up there, right? For most people, and then you let yourself be there. But it depends on your hips. Take your time, let yourself just stay forward with your gaze. Now, sometimes for balance issues, sometimes people like to look maybe 6 feet on the floor in front of them. And you can maybe take your hand off the wall, bring your hands to your heart. Or you can hold on the wall for dear life and never let go, right? So don't force it. Sometimes bringing your arms overhead is helpful for people. So if you bring that hand on the wall up high and then let your other arm come up, sometimes that is easier to balance because it makes you lift up a little more in the core of the body. Good, and let's come down. We're going to turn around and put our right hand on whatever it is we're using. And you're standing on your right foot this time. Left heel comes to the inner ankle. And again, you can stay right here. This is a tree pose, right? If you bring your hands to your heart here and let yourself feel, because you have to be lifting up in the front of this right leg to be even with your foot on the floor, right? And then you can decide, maybe you want to bring your foot up to the inside of your calf. You can keep your hand on the surface you're on. And then, of course, too, if you like to play with your arms overhead, you can do that. You can let your arms come overhead. You can always put your foot back down, bring it back up. So if you're having what I call, I know you should never say a bad balance day, but I'm sorry, some days are a bad balance day, right? Just don't worry about it. Put your toes back on the floor. Let yourself find that core strength that you can find. Good. And then let yourself release and come on down. And where you are, see if you can just separate your feet a little wider than your hips. And let your knees soften and circle your hips around. Just like you're doing a hula hoop, but not so fast, right? So just really easy. And then reverse directions. Obviously, if this bothers your knees, don't do it. But if you can kind of release your hips a little bit that way. Good. We're going to make our way back to our own mats and come down onto the floor. You can just move your chair out of the way as best you can if it kind of blocks your view. But let's come down onto our bellies on the floor. And let yourself rest your head on your hands so that you can release your feet and bend your knees and flex your feet a little bit. And then circle your feet a little bit, all right? So You know, however you want to circle the feet once the knees are bent. Do what feels good. And if you want your lower legs to come from one side to the other, go for it. You know, if you like those windshield wiper blades. I like to go to one side and kind of do like a double little, I'd hate to call it a bounce, but it's just like a little, you know, you go to one side and then it pops back up and you go again and go to the other side then and do the same thing. Good, and then let your legs come on back long and go to the tops of your point your feet so the tops of the feet are on the floor. And then press into the tops of the feet, engage your belly, and feel your knees just barely come off the floor, right? So you're engaged in your legs here. See if you can bring your head just a little bit off your hands, just a little bit, just barely, right? There already is a back bend. If you can stay with your head where it is and slide your hands right back by your chest, hug your elbows in towards each other a little bit. And there is a cobra. You don't have to go any higher to be in a cobra pose than that. You know, some people, it feels good to go higher in a cobra. So if you release your knees back down to the floor, you want to press into your hands and come up higher, you can. Feeling your elbows hugging in. Not necessary to do that. Stay low. Don't do a back bend any higher. And then come on back down. And now let's all come onto our forearms. Get your elbows underneath your shoulders here. And go ahead and clasp your hands. Send your pinky finger out. Press down into the outside edge of your hands here so you really feel engaged. And then bend your knees and lift your hips up for a half forearm plank. So you're in that half forearm plank. You're on the flesh above your knees. Imagine that you're pulling yourself towards the front of your mat, and you'll actually change the positioning of your shoulders when you do that, right? So if you do pull yourself forward, you're more on the flesh above your knees, but also your belly goes crazy. So you can really feel your belly and your low back working and your hips. And it's fun. One more breath. And now come on back down with your legs long and switch how you have your hands clasped. So you're going to naturally do it with one thumb on top all the time when you clasp your hands. Switch and let your other thumb come on top. So it's very odd. And put your pinky out again. And then press into the forearms again. Lift up to that half forearm plank. And it just makes you use your shoulders and your hands a little bit differently. So you can pull yourself forward again a little bit if you want. You can almost kind of feel like you're sawing a log, right? Like you're going back and forth a little bit if you want more in your shoulders. You can put your feet down, lift your knees up, and you can really go crazy if you want, because you can go forward and back like this, really use your belly, but it also goes quite a bit into your shoulders, your biceps. Or you can go, yes, no, I don't want to do any of that. And then come on down. Let's release our heads to the floor and bring our arms down alongside us. Turn your palms down towards the ground, and they're out away from your mat a little bit, okay? So instead of the hands being on your mat right under you there, let them be out on the floor. And then from here, just let yourself lift your head barely off the floor, so your nose barely clears the floor. And now lift just your right leg up. So it's like somebody's pulling your right leg way down towards the foot of the mat. Point your foot really well, and then let that leg come back. So now that leg feels longer. We got to lift the left leg up. And then again, it's like somebody's pulling that foot down towards the foot of your mat. Point your foot, and then let that leg come down. Hopefully you're a little more even. Now, your nose is still off the floor. Try to lift both your legs up. See if you can just be low. Don't go high. Feel the back body engaging. And then let everything come back down. And breathe. Try to let go of your hips. Breathe into your low back. Good. And now from here, we are going to stretch our left arm overhead and roll onto our left side. If this bothers your shoulder, to put your left arm, use it as a pillow, don't do it. Grab a block, put it under your head, right? So you can have a block underneath your head so that you're fine there to be supported, and bring your arm down more, right?
Everybody's shoulders are different. You got to find what works. Keep your right hand on the floor for a second. Flex both your feet right now and let your right leg come just a little bit off your left. It's like you're standing in mountain pose. And from there, see if you can put your right hand on your right hip. So there is your core engaging right there. Really flex both the feet and really feel the outside edge of your left pinky pressing into the floor. And that engages your core. Good. Now let that right leg come up about 12 inches and then lower it back down. So you're going to do these little leg lifts, which are not really for the legs, it's really for the core. So if you lift the leg up and lower it down, and lift it up and lower it down, you've got to use, when you have your hand on your hip, you've got to really go crazy in the core body. So finish off with the leg down, and then bring your right foot up like you're doing tree. It can be on the inside of your calf, on the inside of your thigh. You can let yourself, if you need to, put your right hand on the floor, right? That's fine. And just enjoy letting the hip release there. Some of you might even want to stretch your right arm overhead and clasp your hands up there. So if you like to do that, you can, if that feels really good. Just stretches a little more through the right side of the body. Good. One more breath. Nice. Bring that right leg back down long. We're going to roll back to our bellies, but we're going to roll onto our forearms when we do that and come into a little Sphinx pose. So letting yourself, if you need to be lower, bring your elbows down more towards your waist like this so you're not up so high. If you're comfortable to have your elbows under your shoulders, just let yourself release here. There's an engagement in the belly. Good. And then we're going to come down. We're going to roll to the right side this time. So let yourself, again, if you need to not use that right arm overhead, then put a blanket or a block underneath your head so you can lower your arm down, right? Everybody's different in their shoulders. Flex your feet and feel that outside edge of that right pinky toe pressing into the floor. If you can bring your left hand to your left hip, do. And now when you start that left leg rising up and down, it's not high and it stays parallel. So the more you press into the outside edge of that right foot and then rise the left leg a little up and down, it can be a little wobbly. Yeah, that's fine. And if you feel like you're going to fall backwards, then put your hand on the floor and kind of give yourself a little support. Good. So one more time, and then come down. You probably had enough. You can feel it in the outside of your leg and hip, right? Tree. Bring the left foot in like you're doing a tree pose. It can be on the inside of your calf. You know, sometimes when you're lying down like this, you can actually get it on the inside of your thigh and it feels good, but not always. And then again, you can bring your arms up overhead if you like. Clasp your hands up there on top, above your head, or don't. You know, put your left hand on the floor if you want. Just enjoy. Let that hip release. Let it feel like a huge release in your left hip there. Good. So one more breath. Beautiful. And then bring the leg back down long. We're going to roll back to our bellies again. But this time from here we'll go very easily back into child's pose. So bringing your big toes together, your knees apart. Maybe some of you feel better not to deeply bend your knees. Stay forward onto your forearms. Maybe let your hands make a little pillow, rest your head. That'll release your back and your hips. You don't have to go all the way back into child's pose with your hips towards your heels. And then where your arms are comfortable to be, if you're in a full child's pose, you can bring your arms back alongside your legs with the palms up, or you can keep your arms soft overhead. So you've got to find what feels okay for you. And breathe into the low back here. Let yourself just feel that broadness across your low back when you inhale. You actually literally move your low back with your breath. Nice. One more breath. when you're ready to come up, use your hands to help you. We're going to come around to sitting, so it's kind of like whatever works for you to get out of that pose and come on around to bring your legs in front of you. We are going to bring our legs out wide. If getting a blanket to sit on feels better to you, sometimes if you sit up on a block or a blanket and you bring your legs out, it just feels easier. Though sometimes it feels better to also support under your knees, right? So you can actually do lots of things to help. If your back, if your hamstrings and your low back are tight, if you sit like this up on a blanket and put blocks underneath, it actually almost feels like you want to come a little forward. Maybe. I'm just trying to see if it works for some people. So, you know, be mindful. If you're like, well, I like this pose, just bringing my legs long. I like to put a block there and think of coming a little forward to come into both your inner and your outer legs. Just be mindful. Take your time and think about not rounding forward from your upper back, but think of coming forward from your low back. And it doesn't mean you're going to come very far. Maybe you need to bring your legs closer together, and that makes it feel a little bit better. There's no right or wrong with how far apart your feet are. It has to do with how you're built in your hips. But you do want your toes and your knees to face up. So sometimes the tendency is to do this, let the feet roll out. Instead, make sure your toes and your knees are looking up towards the ceiling. And then when you come forward, you can feel the inner thighs, the hips, the outer thighs. Good. You know, and if any of you are built as such that, you know, it feels better to come farther and farther and farther forward, you know, you be mindful. Use blocks under your head or your forearms. Let it feel really good to find that release. And be aware of feeling your heels on the ground. Every once in a while, kind of pull the heels back towards your sitting bones. So that activates your legs big time. It also like protects you from overstretching, right? Good. One more breath here. And then we're going to slowly let ourselves come up. Bring our legs on around in front of us, so use your hands if you need to. We're going to lie down on our backs on the floor. So get everything out of the way. Have blocks handy on each side of your mat in case you need them, right? And then we'll come on down onto our backs on the floor. Let yourself have your feet on the floor. And just lift your hips up a little bit. Kind of let yourself just lift your hips a tiny bit, get evened out kind of feeling in your spine. Let the hips then just come on down. And now with your feet on the floor, let your knees just come from side to side, and it might be just a little bit. You know, you can go knees down more towards the ground if that feels good, or just barely shift, right, from the top of one hip to the other. Good. And then come back into center. Let your arms come down long alongside you. Bend your elbows to 90 degrees and let your palms face each other. And you've got your elbows in as much as you can get them in towards your rib cage there. Now press into the backs of the arms. Feel how your chest rises up. You can roll your shoulders under more. And now your spine isn't on the ground, right? Keep pressing into the backs of the arms. Float your hips up a little bit. There you are in a bridge. And man, you can go up higher. You can go up and come back down if that's better for you. You can let yourself go up and roll even more underneath you with your shoulders. And some of you might want to stretch your arms long on the floor or clasp your hands underneath you in a bridge pose. Or some of you may want to grab one of those blocks and put it underneath your sacrum and rest in that supported bridge pose. So only you know, right, how this pose feels to you. If there's something that just doesn't feel quite right, come down. And if you change a little bit about where your feet are, how far away they are from your buttocks before you rise up, that can make a huge difference. So sometimes just a little bit, you know, an inch or two closer or farther away with your feet can help you feel better in the pose. There isn't a right or a wrong.
And if you like staying supported, stay supported. If you like playing, being supported on that block by lifting your feet up in the air or doing any of the stuff that we do when we're supported, you are more than welcome to do that. You can be on the block and stretch one leg long to open the front of your hip. You can, just take your time to bring your feet up and do some work for your abs if you like playing with leg lifts up there. Or you can be, yes, no, I'm not doing any of that. And just let yourself come in and out of a bridge or stay resting on your block. Good. Now when you're ready to come down, let yourself be really mindful. So if you're not already down, a lot of you are, but if you're not already, come on down and let your knees come in towards your chest, and you can let the knees come side to side, just really easing your way through your back there. And now, let's bring our feet to the floor. Bring your arms out beside you, and if you have room for a T position, you can just bring them out from your shoulders, and you can turn the palms up or down. Let's cross our right thigh over our left, just like you're sitting cross-legged in a chair, a woman cross-legged, okay, if you can. And then just lift your hips up and shift them to the right 2 or 3 inches and put them back down. And let your knees come over to the left. So you're coming into a bit of a twist. Now your right foot can hit the floor really soon so that you're not very far over into the twist. And you can stay right there. You're supporting yourself. Or if you want to go lower, you can grab one of those blocks, put it on underneath somewhere like over there underneath the outside of your left leg or your right leg or your knee, so you don't go all the way down to the floor with your legs, but you come into a deeper twist. So you can go all the way to the floor if you want. You know that. Just be mindful. Don't do anything that doesn't feel comfortable. And this really gets into the buttock, right? It gets up into that right buttock, and depending on you, how that feels, you might not want to go that far. You may decide, I just really want to release down with the legs. And you can always turn your head to look to the right if that feels even better, so that you're looking away from the direction your knees are going. Good. And now, as you start to come up, uncross your legs pretty quickly because you're going to be really cockeyed. You're going to want to uncross and then straighten your spine out. So you kind of want to get yourself shifted back to center in your spine. And then we'll bring our left thigh over our right. Lift your hips, shift them to the left 2 or 3 inches, put them back down. And then let the knees come over to your right. And again, how far you go with this, totally up to you. You can use a block. You can let your foot just hold you there. Just be really mindful not to overdo. And again, if you like to turn to look to the left, you can let your head turn slightly. Remember, you do want to kind of let your left shoulder release and breathe. Good. One more breath there. And now take your time. Again, when you start to head back into center, really be mindful. Don't overdo as you uncross, and straighten yourself out so that you're able to be really mindful and okay with what you're doing there when you bring your knees into your chest. And maybe your body's insisting to do something else right now. And that could be anything. You can stretch your legs up into the air. You can come into Konasana if you want, soles of the feet towards each other. You may decide you want to do like a different kind of a hip opener, a figure 4 with your legs. Take your time. I'm walking around, you can tell I'm getting white, but I'm also going to bring stuff. So give me time to get around to grab bolsters, and I am going to look for signs from people who want a bolster.
me here. There's that sign. If you need a blanket, if you need a blanket for under your head, if you need something to rest your head on to get your neck comfortable, let me know that too, because that can make a huge difference. So that you're not having your chin lift up and tightening the back of your neck. And then where you put your arms and your legs too. Huge difference. Wave at me if I miss somebody for a bolster. Okay. I know we're in the best part here now. Let yourself just softly release down into the ground. So just really feel that support of the ground underneath you. And let yourself accept your breaths in and out through your nose. Nothing you need to do in order to breathe. Let your arms and your legs feel kind of heavy. You're not forcing that. You're just feeling the weight, which will help you release your shoulders and your hips. And just keep returning to your breath. Whenever your busy mind wants to go off into thinking, come back to be with your breath. Letting that wave of your breath bring you into a quieter place. And give yourself time to benefit from all you just did. It's by letting yourself completely and fully relax.
allowing your breaths to gradually become deeper and longer, not forcing, really just letting the breath just start to refresh you really by coming in a little deeper and let your body feel like starting to move again before you do, so that when you're ready, as your fingers and your toes, your hands and your feet want to move around, your arms, your legs, take your time. Let your body do what you need to do. Stretch or bend. You know you're welcome to roll onto either your right or left side if that's comfortable for you. You can stay for a few breaths so that your body and your brain get a little more time to adjust. So when you do feel like ready to rise up, it feels okay to do so, to get back up again, to start to get your head back up on top, and energy will start coming back to you once you do get seated comfortably, so that you can feel the head above the heart. Let your eyes be closed if they opened on the way up, so that you can again come back to watching your breath, but feel re-energized here, so that when you do get ready to move around and walk around, it feels okay again. So on your next exhale, let your hands come gently to meet there in front of your chest, in front of your own heart. And wishing each one of you a very joyful day. Namaste.
Namaste.
Happy Monday.
That was a good class.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was a good Monday.